Hello and welcome. My name is Kyle Nielsen, and this is How You Level Up, a podcast where I ask questions to help you become your best self. Today we ask, what are the 7 deadly sins of speaking? In 2013, Julian Treasure gave a TED Talk on how to speak so that people want to listen. In it, Treasure, who is a sound and communication expert, identified these 7 speaking habits which he suggests we should avoid. Because they overlap with so many of the things we've already discussed, we're going to unpack them here. The 7 deadly sins of speaking are: 1 is gossip, 2 is lying, 3 is judging, 4 is excuses, 5 is complaining, 6 is negativity, and 7 is dogmatism. Starting off then with number 1, gossiping. This is the act of talking about people behind their backs, often to share negative information or rumors. It can harm the person being talked about and create a toxic environment. Suppose you are discussing with a colleague and you casually mention, "Did you hear about Jane's mishap in the last project? It was a disaster." This kind of gossip can tarnish Jane's reputation without giving her a chance to defend or explain herself. 2 is lying. The second sin of speaking, plainly enough, lying is the act of intentionally deceiving others. It can break down trust and damage relationships. If you're in sales and you consistently overpromise to your clients saying, "Our product will double your productivity," without evidence to back it up, you're exaggerating. You're lying. This lying leads to disappointment in your clients and a loss of credibility. 3 was judging. We've talked about how judgments are helpful for you because they help you decide and form opinions. You base these judgments on your experiences, your beliefs, and the facts that you have at hand. And if you recall, your personal preference can hijack your rational decision-making abilities and convince you of something that's not right. This is when judgment leads only to negative places. If you make assumptions and judge people without having all of the facts, it's hurtful and damaging. Judging in general will prevent you from understanding and empathizing with others. If during a brainstorming session, you immediately dismiss a suggestion by saying, "That's a terrible idea," you're judging the individual's contribution and potentially shutting down future communication. A good judgment call in this type of situation would be to respond to the person who suggested the idea and say something along the lines of, "I've heard about this avenue before and thought that X thing prevented any path forward. What do you know about X thing that would not have it prevent us?" 4 was excuses. We know that excuses exist to make us feel better, that they focus on external factors of why something couldn't get done or why we're not beholden to something we're responsible for. While preventing us from taking responsibility for our actions or inactions, they also lead to a lack of accountability. You'll know that people who constantly make excuses are tough to be around. If you regularly miss deadlines and say, "It's not my fault, I'm just too busy," you're making an excuse instead of owning up to poor time management, or perhaps you're overloaded. And so the deadline that was missed, it's not that it's not your fault. It's that, "Hey, I've got too much work on my plate. This needs to be taken away." Or if you've been asked to work on a project and haven't made the time to do so because you're waiting for someone else's input that isn't completely necessary for you to continue working on other parts of the project, that's also an excuse to reduce your responsibility. Nothing more. Number 5 was complaining. The 5th of the 7 deadly sins of speaking we have also looked at before. We know that complaints for the sake of complaining actually is just gossiping. Complaints because you need to vent and express an emotion that you kept down so that you didn't inappropriately release is a good thing. Complaining for the sake of asking someone to identify your blind spot can also be a good thing. So it is complaining for the sake of complaining, because you can complain. That's the habit of a chronic complainer. And a chronic complainer is projecting their perfectionism onto the world. They will have missed expectations and constantly be upset, because that's how they choose to look at the world, as people and things that they can complain about. Hearing someone complain can be draining, and it makes the person complaining seem ungrateful, unappreciative, or just lacking respect in general. If you're always complaining about your workload, I can't believe how much work I have, without producing solutions or seeking assistance, you're contributing to your own negative atmosphere. Number 6 was negativity. A person who is constantly being negative, most likely complaining, or being a general pessimist can bring down the mood of those around them. They walk around the world with a rain cloud over their heads, and it's really apparent. Suppose every time your team proposed a new project, you reply with, "This is never going to work." This repeated negativity stifles innovation and discourages your team from taking risks. It also tells your team that you are not the person to go to with ideas, that you have a habit of knocking things down instead of exploring them. Now, it's good to note a person who is negative as compared to a person with a learned incapacity. If someone is negative, their negativity will permeate almost all of what they do. If it's a learned incapacity, their negative outlook will center on 1, 2, or a select few things, rather than everything. This learned incapacity can be overcome with some support. The negativity will not change until the person who is negative wants to change themselves. And the last of the deadly sins of speaking, dogmatism. This is about being closed-minded and unwilling to listen to other viewpoints. It can prevent us from growing and learning. It can lead to conflict and a lack of understanding. Dogmatism involves asserting your opinions as the only correct opinions. Your judgment is coloring the world, coloring your reality with something gray and uninteresting. If you're in a discussion and you say, "I'm telling you, this is the only way to do it," you're being dogmatic. By dismissing other possible solutions, you limit innovation. You come off as arrogant and self-righteous. So now thinking about these 7 deadly sins of speaking: gossiping, lying, judging, excuses, complaining, negativity, and dogmatism. Ask yourself if you have a habit, even a small habit, of sometimes falling into 1 or 2 of these sins. When do they come up? What is the reason they come up in those moments? Why might your reaction to those moments be to enact one of these 7 things, these 7 habits? And, given more time to respond to these situations, how might you respond without one of the 7 deadly sins of speaking? Thank you for listening to another episode. If you're enjoying the show, open up the app you're listening to this on and hit the like or subscribe button and give a 5-star rating. At least twice a week, you'll find a new episode asking you a new question, so you can strengthen your emotional independence, improve your communication skills, and upgrade your personal philosophy. So if there's a question you'd like me to dive into next, send it to any of these social media accounts connected in the show notes here. This is all about how you level up.